I'm going to respond to the negative's first claim that animal research has provided key medical breakthroughs. And while animal testing has been done for years, since there's biological differences between what animals that they test on in humans, there's proven to be lots of delays in animal testing, or false positives, or things that they didn't find that correlated actually did. Like, for example, according to Deborah Miller in The Value of Animal Experimentation is Exaggerated, she says, for instance, by 1963, prospective and retrospective studies of human patients had already shown a strong correlation between cigarette smoking and lung cancer. In contrast, almost all experimental efforts to produce lung cancer in animals had failed. As a result, Clarence Little, a leading cancer animal experimenter, wrote, the failure of many investigators to induce experimental cancers, except for in a handful of cases, during 50 years of trying, cast serious doubt on the validity of the cigarette lung cancer theory. Because the human and animal data failed to agree, this research and others distrusted the more reliable human data. As a result, health warnings were delayed for years while thousands of people died of lung cancer. So we have gotten to a point where we rely too much on animal testing, and we say if it doesn't work in animals, it can't work in humans, when there could be possible life-saving treatments. So it's one of the ways that animal testing actually hinders the medical process. And another example, according to Deborah Miller again, is in the animal model polio, for example, resulted in misunderstanding of the mechanism of infection. Studies on monkeys falsely indicated that the polio virus was transmitted via a respiratory rather than a digestive route. This erroneous assumption resulted in misdirected preventative measures and delayed the development of tissue cultural methodologies critical to the discovery of a vaccine. So these studies that they do on animals don't necessarily transfer over to humans. And they also brought up that a lot of things like involving transplants from animals to humans have been beneficial. But those are called xenotransplantations. And I have a quote here from Vaccines, Blood and Biologists on the FDA website that although the potential benefits are considerable, the use of xenotransplantation raises concerns regarding the potential infection of recipients with both recognized and unrecognized infectious agents and the possible subsequent transmission to their close contacts and the general human population. A public health concern is the potential for cross-species infection by retroviruses, which may be latent and lead to diseases year after the infection. Moreover, new infectious agents may not be readily identified with new techniques. So at this rate, we can see that although animal testing has provided some research, it also provides a lot of delays. And if we can find new alternative methods, we can move past animal testing into something that is more effective. And in response to their second claim that the Animal Welfare Act fails, even though there has been new amendments, it's still not being properly enforced. And all my sources here come from a USDA audit of the enforcement of the act themselves. And the USDA, as you know, is taking control of enforcing the Animal Welfare Act and making sure these research facilities have been following regulation. And in one part, it says the report also cites a dramatic increase in facilities committing ADA violations, noting that in 2002, 463 out of 1,030 facilities were non-compliant, in comparison to 2004, when 600 of the 1,176 were non-compliant. So you see the rate of violations of the ADA is increasing dramatically. And alarmingly, but not necessarily surprising, is the 29% failure rate of researchers who are required by the AWA to search for and use non-animal alternatives when available. Additionally, the audit report says that 33 of the top 50 research facility violators in the nation were educational institutions. So basically, when told that they should be lowering the amount of animals they use in testing and finding alternative methods, they basically, 29% of them are ignoring that and are continuing to use animals anyways. Another one here says, as for the approximately 9,000 facilities that the USDA does regulate, which 1,000 are designated for research, only 99 USDA inspectors are employed to see over their operations. A report over a span of 10 years concluded that even the minimal standards set forth by the AWA are not being met by these facilities. So not only does it seem like they're understaffed, that the researchers aren't even listening to the AWA and ignoring the rules that are set forth by it. Which leads me to the response to the third claim about alternative research methods. As we saw in here, that they're ignoring the chance to progress in science and find new alternate research methods to animal testing. And a big part of this is because a lot of the funding that goes towards animal testing could be used to advance another research method. So they say none of these research methods work yet because we haven't invested enough money because we are too invested in animal research. And I have here a number of methods. The most popular one that's coming up right now is in vitro testing, which basically they take a human cell in a test tube and they combine it with a chemical they're trying to test or a drug of some sort and see how the cell reacts. And basically this is a substitute to what they did before, which is putting it in the eyes of bunnies. And it says, consequently, according to the National Center for Biotechnology Information in the U.S. National Library of Medicine, it says, consequently, a number of short-term in vitro tests have been accepted by regulatory authorities. Of these, the AMES test is most popular. The development, let's see, using primary cell cultures of so in vitro testing is one of the ones that are coming up, and it's being used popularly in testing the effects of drugs on cells, and they actually come from humans. So it has a lot more reliable transfer rate than using it on dogs or any other type of animal with a different biological makeup. Another study is human population studies, which is an epidemiology study, which according to Deborah Millers, in contrast to artificial animal model conditions that generally differ in causes and mechanisms from human conditions, human population studies have been very fruitful. For example, the identification of major risk factors, coronary heart disease, such as elevated cholesterol and high blood pressure, which are important for prevention techniques derived from epidemiological studies. Then we also have study on patients. This main source of medical knowledge has always been direct study from human disease by closely monitoring human patients. You can also do autopsies and biopsies, in which it says the autopsy rate in the United States and Europe has been falling steadily, much to the dismay of clinical investigators who recognize the value of this traditional research tool. We also have post-marketing surveillance, which is thanks to advanced computer technologies, we can keep track of patients after they've experienced these researches and see how they've responded to studies and drugs that they've been given to them. So those are just a few of the alternative researches that could sufficiently replace animal testing. Thank you.